Hello, how are you? Here we are again for the ad hoc subcommittee on charter ad hoc subcommittee, I guess is the official name, right? Where did we get the exploratory? Whatever. So introductions?
Michael Geller, consultant.
Tom Owings, mayor.
Suzanne Bryant, acting city attorney.
Sylvia Rodriguez, City Attorney's Office, Executive Assistant.
Hello, Deanna. How are you? So do we have any public comment?
Oh, yeah.
I figured we would. Come on up. I'll get my pen out.
Okay. One, whoops, I didn't mean to be that loud on purpose. I would like you to make this available to us in a workable form. I talked to Suzanne last night, and she said you guys were going to work on it because as a PDF file, all you can do is look at it, which means you have to retype anything if there's something you want to change to show you what it is. I tried doing it where I typed the changes, and then when I went back and I read it, when I just did the changes, it really looked stupid, and I didn't think anybody could follow it. So then I had my daughter do it with her program where you can read a PDF and convert it to a Word, and then it took me an hour to fix the document so it looked like it did to begin with.
Gotcha.
Very, very time consuming. So I got done with what I wanted to do last night at 12:30, and I emailed it to you with a lot of ideas, a lot of options, and I would like to actually see you look at those different kinds of options. You notice there's a lot less people here today, and that's because now that spring break is over, some people had that time off, several people were teachers. I know a few people told me they were going to be here, but I don't know what happened. But I would actually, I would like you to prove to the people that this is not a done deal and they actually have input. So I would like you to actually go through some of the suggestions. Actually, I'd like you to go through all of the suggestions. They're not all going to be feasible. I know that. You know, I probably could have worded some a little bit better. But it's the ideas that were in there. That's the important part.
So where did you produce it?
I emailed it to you.
To me?
Yes.
Okay, when did you do that?
Last night at 12:30 when I got done after the city council meeting.
Okay, I reviewed my emails. I didn't see it, but that doesn't mean it isn't there.
I sent it to you, I sent it to Richard, and I sent it to the charter at Moveld.
Okay.
Suzanne's shaking her head, so she must have seen it.
I did see your email came in. It was like 12:44 a.m.
Okay, it was a little later than 12:30.
But I did see that it did come in.
Yeah, the last time I remember looking at the clock, it was 12:30.
So what were the topics that you were covering?
Oh, I think I had a suggestion for nearly everything. Yes.
So we can go over those in the next meeting?
Okay, if we...
Give us a chance to read them?
That would be fine.
Okay.
And you have something
And
for...
there's no problem putting it in on Word, is there?
With what was given to me last week, it was a print, so I had to scan it and make it into a PDF to upload it. Hopefully this week we'll get a Word document and upload that.
Since I had the same problem.
I do understand the concern.
I had the same problem this morning because...
Well, the other thing is, when I sent it out, for some reason, I guess my version of Word was not the same as other people's, so I guess that might have been because I had a couple people that I barely got to read their emails before I came here that said that they couldn't read it. So
well,
is there more than one?
Yeah. Listen, what we need to do is we need to start in Word 2003. Most everybody has that. I think we're working in 2010 or 2007.
That's a DOCX.
Yeah. So if we need to put it to where it
There's
says
a free converter,
DOC.
but
Yeah.
people don't
No, we'll do that.
Right. So whatever it takes so that people can
Yeah.
look at it, and then that would be
And if you
great.
get on the Microsoft website, there is a free converter for that if you look on it. Just put in Microsoft Word Converter, and it will download a converter. But we'll put it in an older version.
Okay.
Because the new version can read the old version, but the old version,
Can't read the new.
yeah. All right, so we will do that.
Okay, that would be.
Is there any other public comment? So I had an email from Jim Kelly, which the emails are starting. We will have them on the website by Thursday, I believe. So I had some of the questions are a bit repetitive because we're not putting the answers on the website, but we'll get to that too. But Jim Kelly writes, I would like to know why are the members of the city council, I would like to know why are members of the city council involved in writing the city charter. It seems to me it should be a citizens committee. Citizens that do not get paid to write the charter and have no other motive than a better Moreno Valley. There should also be no time limit on when the final draft is completed. That way it's being accomplished. That way it is being accomplished now leads me and other citizens to believe there are other reasons it is being rushed through. Okay, so if Jim was listening to the city council meeting last night, he knows that there's a different timetable now. And appreciate your comment, Jim. If you have any other questions, please keep them coming. The reason the city council is involved in writing this is that state law provides for two methods of charter formation. And in fact, there is a committee form who is doing a committee charter, and then the law also allows the city council to do it. So the city council is just exercising its rights under the laws of the state of California. All right, so before we get into this, hi, how are you? Thought we'd have a little fun here. Thought we'd have a little fun here this morning. I don't know if it's fun or not, but we'll try it anyhow. I wanted to, everybody seems to, you know, the city charter is a form of constitution for the city. It's a social contract. Last week I was discussing with you the fact that the U.S. Constitution was basically somewhat plagiarized from Rousseau's book Social Contract and John Locke's two treatises on government. It also was initially the Constitution's first draft involved large parts of social contract and two treatises of government. It also incorporated large portions of the original Articles of Confederation. So a delegation wrote the initial draft, and then a committee to revise and rewrite the draft was formed, and that is the draft that we are all aware of, or that we're all familiar with now. One interesting fact I wanted to just let you know, George Washington was not a member of the committee and did not vote. He was the presiding officer. So at the time, the U.S. Constitution was referred to by newspapers. The nickname for it was, the draft was, during the ratification, it was called a bundle of compromises. So that is sort of what we're doing in this process now, is trying to compromise different ideas of governing, and hopefully when we get to the end of it, the compromises will all work. But I just wanted to test you out here a little bit. Does anyone here know what bill of, you know, during the ratification for the for the Constitution, there were some states that were holding out for a Bill of Rights. So James Madison promised a Bill of Rights, and the Bill of Rights was in the original Constitution was ratified and adopted without a Bill of Rights. And then shortly after that, there were the Bill of Rights, which consisted of 10 amendments. Originally, I don't think many people know this, but only 12 states participated in the Constitutional Convention. The state of Rhode Island did not attend. The state of Rhode Island was also, I believe, the last state to ratify. But under the Bill of Rights were very important, and we all talk about the Bill of Rights. So I just wanted to ask a few questions here and see how much you know. What amendment to the Constitution gives you the right to speedy trial and an impartial trial? Does anyone know that amendment?
Sorry to say, my con law final was about 20 years ago, so.
It's out of the 100 money, because that's what gives us, that's what justice is all about.
Okay, so it's the Sixth Amendment. So which amendment gives us the rights, the right to a jury trial? It's the Seventh Amendment. I'm being easy on you guys. And everyone should know this one. What amendment gives you the right to bear arms? The Second Amendment. And which one is the right that guards against unreasonable searches and seizures? It would be the Fourth Amendment. The Fifth Amendment is the amendment that gives grand jury indictment required for serious crimes, no double jeopardy. A person cannot be forced to testify against themselves, and no loss of life, liberty, or property without due process. So that's my test for today. Go ahead, Chris.
On that Second Amendment, the right to bear arms doesn't necessarily mean automatic weapons or guns. It could be a club or a knife.
Well, that's your interpretation. So I first saw this in a Superior Court judge asked six learned counsels representing my company these questions, and it was embarrassing for everyone in the room that not a single lawyer could answer them, including you. Yeah. So the other thing I wanted to ask was a very simple one, Pete. When you were in school, you probably learned this one. Who was the first president of the United States? George. It was not. The first president of the United States under the Articles of Confederation was John Hanson. So that's my trivia for the day. Okay.
Trick question.
It is a trick question. George Washington was the first president under the Constitution.
Of the United States of America. Right.
Well, the Confederates, the Articles of Confederation were the United States of America. So when the war ended, the Revolutionary War, we were governed under Articles of Confederation for a period of time. They were not working out, so I believe 1789 to 1787, the Constitutional Convention gathered. Some historians would say it was a bloodless coup because there was no legal authority for them to gather to change the Articles of Confederation. But they did, and we ended up with the Constitution. So under the Articles of Confederation, I think we were the governing document for 10 or 11 years. So Constitution didn't come until 1889, I believe, 1789. So might be off a year or two there. My history's a little rusty, but okay. So here, what we passed out today is the preamble and Article 1 and Article 2, which you have seen, and which the attorney has made recommendations to. And so you will notice that it is labeled first draft at the top of the page. And the date should be April 5th, 2013, just so we're all, I know some of you are operating off, we've had so many copies of this, so I just wanted to make sure you had a reference point so you knew where we were. We passed out Article 3 and 4, and you will notice that you have those copies, and the, I believe these are the wrong, this is the wrong copy. Man. Okay, I didn't watch her when she printed them. This will be the working draft. Okay. And it is dated April 10th, 2013, just because that's the date today. And you also should have a copy of next week's topic for discussion, which is Article 5, 6, and 7. And you will notice at the top of that page, it does say working draft. Once the attorney's revisions have been made and comments have been given, that will be presented to you as a first draft. But now it is a working draft for discussion next week. So going back to the topic of today, Article 3 and Article 4, would like to, this is basically the provisions governing the council. And Deanna, could you, because we don't have your, could you just kind of start us out here and go article by article? You have a copy of your.
You know what? Actually, my printer ran out of ink last night.
Would it
And
take
you
long to
cannot
get
read
one?
what it is that I printed. I couldn't read what I wrote.
Why don't we go get it? We'll print it right now.
That would be great.
Okay.
If you,
No, that's,
Sorry,
we can do that.
Basically, my biggest concern was, once you read the preamble, it sounded wonderful. You know, transparency, public participation, but then when you went through this, it's, the council does this, the mayor does that, and the only thing that mentioned public participation said, you can't stop the public from coming to a meeting. There was just a lot in there that left out the public. And one of the things that I think as a city of this size is that we need a citizens advisory committee, commission, whatever you want to call it, but it's definitely a citizens advisory for the purpose of actually advising the city council. And it would be a advisory commission committee that needs to be made up of very diverse people. You know, unlike the planning commission, we know what you were looking for when you were interviewing them, and you got what you were looking for. This needs to be a diverse group of people with very different ideas so that you get a sense of the community when they recommend things. And you need to get a lot more recommendations from the public.
Okay.
And in each one of these, that was a lot of my comments was, you needed this from the public, you needed to listen to that from the public. I'm not saying you need a citizens advisory, several citizens advisory groups, just one big one. You know, maybe 10, 11 people, maybe more or less, but large enough to get a very diverse population of views so that they can tell you, you know what, this is what the rest of, you know, that you're including everybody from, you know, different walks of life and different kinds of civic organizations. And I kind of spelled that out. You'll notice that what I did was I put how I thought you needed to change it, and then I gave some narratives too that, you know, is not part of it. That needs to come out later, but on why I thought we needed to do certain things.
So, you know, I had asked for this room to be set up differently, and I wanted to have like a U table, so if you're listening back there, so that you could sit, so the participants could sit with their notes, and so we just put, so I'll do that. I'll make sure that gets done next time, so that you can sit down. So once you, if you want, just take that mic and sit down and let's talk for a minute.
Okay. I really have no idea how to get it.
Pull it towards you, yeah.
Okay.
So you can be comfortable.
You drop it, you
And if
buy
you
it.
want to put your notes, just put them up right there. It's okay too. But let me ask you a few questions about this.
Okay.
One of the things that we're talking about that we haven't, you know, we really haven't fleshed it out is how committees would be appointed. So theoretically, under the system of government that we are operating under currently, we have a whole bunch of commissions and things that the Planning Commission is not a good example because that is a state mandated commission. The state law requires that every city have a planning commission. State law tells you what the planning commission's purpose is. So, but let's take all the other commissions that the city has. Those are all supposed to be those citizen participatory commissions that you're talking about. I think the crux of the argument is how they are appointed.
Yeah.
So some cities do a appointment. They have a committee to appoint. It's called I think it is called an appointment. Riverside is one of those cities. They have a standing committee that sole purpose is to help the mayor and the council appoint people to those commissions. And of course, there could be a criteria for that. You know, for the appointments that the committee would live by. So, would that address your issues if we had a better participation or a better method of appointment than what the city currently has.
As long as that particular committee is made up of diverse people of different opinions, and you're not getting a committee that's a homogenized opinion of what it
Sure.
is that you want. So yes, as long as it is a diverse committee that does this, yes, that would exactly address what I'm looking for.
Okay, so now we have your copies here. So
Okay.
could we, while you're here, here's your, you have a copy now of your, could we go through this, Deanna? Let's start out with, do you have our copy in front of you there?
Yeah, I have yours.
Let's start out with section 300, form of government.
Okay, there's nothing under
Susan.
section 300. You
Okay.
need to go to 400.
All right, so you're okay with 300. So 400, powers vested in the council. The city council, City of Moreno Valley shall be the governing body of the city. Are you okay with that?
Yes.
Okay. So tell me what part in here that we're not, that you have concerns are in 400.
Okay, anything that is underlined is what I added. Anything that is italicized is my narrative. That's just my opinion, and it's not meant to be part of the draft. And I did that so that people that didn't have color and printed would know the difference. I was trying to think ahead. I had to fix that last night before I went to sleep.
So I see, you know, you've got the thing that you talked about in your public comments. You know, I'm not ignoring it, but I'd like to address it later. I know where you're headed with it.
Yes, you do.
And
If
so-
you're absolutely promising me you will address this, you will listen to
Yes.
input from people, then actually, after I reread it, it should have been in the first draft that we did, not here. But I stuck it in here because I wanted to make sure that you didn't leave it out, because this also talks about the powers of the city council.
all right, so
and-
let's just tell us exactly. We'll do it now. So let's just tell us exactly. Don't mince words. Just get to it.
Oh.
Tell us what it means, what you want, what your concern is.
Prohibiting a gift of public funds is actually, I thought, self-explanatory. I don't believe that a city that is claiming to be in dire straits needs to give anything away. I don't know how simple that could be.
Okay, but let me just parse the words with you, okay?
Okay.
The charter expressly prohibits, this is your wording, not the committee's, but
Right.
your
This-
suggested wording.
This is my suggestion.
Yeah, the charter expressly prohibits a gift of public funds, and the laws of the state and the laws of the California State Constitution will apply to this provision. It doesn't say a gift of public funds to who? To what are your concerns? A gift, the cities do oftentimes give gifts of public funds. What kinds of gifts?
You know, there's a difference between giving different civic organizations grants to accomplish something. There's a difference in we're giving you this approval and we're getting this infrastructure in return. You know, there's a give and take. You give something, you get something in return.
So which
A
kind of gifts?
A gift is when you give something and get absolutely nothing in return. And for some people, that's probably an interpretation.
So can you address Deanna's concern, Suzanne? Well, we'll let everyone have, everybody gets a chance.
From what I'm trying to decipher, you're mostly concerned with making sure that the prohibitions found in the California Constitution are included in a future draft.
Absolutely. It's that simple.
Well, listen, there's nobody in this room or in this city that has any problem with a statement in our charter that says we'll follow the state law. I mean, you know, listen, I understand your concern. Can I be clairvoyant here for a moment? What you really mean to say is you want to make sure that Ito Benzivi doesn't get something for nothing.
Yeah, that too.
Well, that's primarily what we're talking about, isn't it?
But you know what,
So-
that really isn't it,
Well,
because,
let me use-
Benzivi will be somebody else some
Okay,
other year.
All right,
It's-
so let's say developer. Can we do that? Not personalize it, developer. So what gifts do you have in mind here so that we can get specific about it?
Actually, if you use the same wording that's in the state constitution, that would be adequate.
Okay.
It's
No-
hard to say.
Okay. No one has.
It's really too much to.
I got you.
It could be anything.
All right. I don't think anyone in this committee or anyone in the city staff or anyone for the council for that matter would advocate not following the state law. So if that is something you need to see in this draft, we'll find a way to put it. It will simply state we'll follow the state law.
Tom, can I?
Sure.
I mean, one of the problems with this kind of a thing, and the state law is very clear, and over the years I've encountered people who think that the state law addresses something that it doesn't, or doesn't address something that it should. And that is, you hear the question, what are you doing to get X business here, whether it's Stater Brothers Market or a retail store or anything. And over the years, the city has used a variety of tools, including redevelopment or sales tax back to the store. Like, for instance, Burlington Coat Factory is one of them, I think, that was done that. And some people think that's using public money inappropriately, and it's a gift of money. But I believe, Suzanne, correct me if I'm wrong, those forms of assistance are provided for or allowed under the state constitution, correct?
Well, yeah, and also it was provided for under the redevelopment laws, which we are undergoing changes right now.
Right, but even-
the
yeah.
prohibition is in the California Constitution.
Right.
So,
So we have, even now, without redevelopment, as I understand it, from when I talked to Barry, we have the ability to use certain incentives such as sales tax and other things like that to certain businesses to assist them. We have money available to assist us, don't we, right now, to provide to businesses?
right, and I don't think that would fall under a category of a gift.
Well, I don't think so either, neither does the law, but I still talk to people on a daily basis that think that is. And so that's where we have a difference of opinion, I think, in some cases, as far as Mr. Benzivi or any other developer improving a major street that's near his property to facilitate a public purpose, to some people is a horrible use of money to benefit that property owner. But the reality is I think that the state law differs from that, and that's where we have a difference of opinion.
Well, the reason the state law differs from that is that, take, for example, the Nason Street, which has been a subject of many of your comments. The fact of the matter is, it goes by dozens of property owners. And when it's open, thousands of people will use it. You can read into what the motives were of putting it there, but the fact of the matter is, ambulances will use it to transport patients between the two hospitals. It will take traffic off of some overloaded arterials in that area. And as a member of the Planning Commission, we sat on many meetings where people were constantly reminding us that our decisions should take into account the fact that when Nason was completed, the traffic would be less on those arterials. So there are thousands of people who will be driving on that street. There are hundreds of property owners who will be benefit from it. And I dare say you will even drive on that street once it's open. So it is not fair to say that it was done just for Ido Benzivi. And, you know, that's the point I think you're trying to make, isn't it, Richard?
It is exactly. Now, let me take it one step further. This is a question. I haven't researched the law or anything. There is a feeling by some people, not necessarily Ms. Reeder, I've talked to several other people about it, and it came up at the forum the other day, that somehow we're going to put in this charter the ability to be more lenient with public money than currently is possible under the current general law or state constitution. And I don't know if a charter has the ability to do that. I don't know whether that is something that, and that's a big question that should be answered. Is that pretty
Well,
much
we
what?
can't violate the state constitution.
No, I know
Number one.
that.
Number two is, if such a clause were this mythical clause, then wait for it to be finished and find it. It isn't going to be in there. So I don't know what, we're talking about something that hasn't happened. It's not all written. So when it's all written, look through it, read it, show us the paragraph where it says we're going to give all this money away to all these people.
Well, not only that, but I think what we've demonstrated so far is that we put more restrictions on the city council's ability to spend money. And I think when you see the finished document, you'll find that it will be more restrictive than the current system of government. So I do agree with Michael, might not have said it as forcefully, but I do agree, you know, the reason I said this thing in the beginning of my comments was, again, a committee drafted a first draft of the U.S. Constitution, which is 7 articles, 27 amendments. No one saw that draft until it was given to the committee to revise and write. So we're doing this kind of in a very different fashion. We're exposing people to the product as we write it, and we are somewhat doing a movie script out of sequence. In other words, we're filming out of sequence here. And until you see the whole document, it's probably not fair to the document to make judgments. I hear your concern, and I guarantee you that it will be addressed in a fashion. Whether or not it is a fashion that you agree with, we can talk about when we get to that part of the charter. But it's not going to go unanswered, Deanna. I want you to know that. Okay?
We don't have to debate Nathan at the moment. This is.
No, right, and I appreciate that, sir. Can we get you in here for a turn?
If you,
Just real quickly, I have to go. I have a doctor's appointment in a minute, so I really wanted to make a comment. I agree with you. I agree with, and your name was Deanna?
Deanna Reed.
Deanna Reed. Regarding the committees, I think it's very important how they're selected to get a diverse representation from the community. I think that's very important. I think we've had a history, a perception from the citizens.
I think it's accurate to say history.
Yeah, of not doing things decent and in order. The second point is to her point, is that this committee, I think there can be a committee that can be an overall general committee and then subcommittee of 2 that will handle specific things like this issue, that would make recommendations to the city council when there's an issue that comes up and there's.
But see, we currently do that. For example, we have the mayor's ad hoc committee on graduation rates in the Moreno Valley Unified School District. So that committee was formed. It was formed by resolution, went through all of the notices and discussions and whatever, and to your point, I am not appointing the members to that committee. Dr. White will, because it needs to be her committee. You know, we will appoint 1 councilman, and that is beyond the 1 councilman, which is Victoria Baca. There will be no other appointments made by me. I intend to make no other appointments. That is happening now. I hear your concern that, you know, that's because that's my method of doing things, and you want to make sure that it's done in a way not only now but later.
Correct.
We hear that concern. We'll try to address it, but that will come in a future article or a future section of the charter. But when we get to it, we'll take that into consideration. We're already exploring different methods of doing it, so we're doing our research. Okay, back. Thank you, sir. What was your name?
Luke Fuller.
Luke, glad to meet you. I think I met you before.
Yes.
Yeah. Go ahead. Is there anybody else wanting to make a comment, or can we?
I want to make a comment.
Okay.
Do I need this? Put it right up here.
Let's record it.
Huh?
they can't hear you if you don't actually speak into the microphone.
I'm gonna speak into it, but I'm gonna put it up here. I don't have to hold it, do I? I'm gonna speak right here. Can you hear me now?
We hear you loud and clear.
Well, that's what,
You're across the street now.
that's the whole purpose. You know, I don't believe, you know, I agree what you said. We need the planning commission because it is a mandate. But you also gotta remember, they have no power because they cannot be overruled by the city council. The voters of this city have already spoken. When they had an election and you elected people to sit up there, those are the people that are responsible for the city. That's the bottom line. And we have to follow that. We have the United States Constitution. We have the U.S. California Constitution. You have you're trying to get a city charter, but right now you're a general law. I also read the government code, and I also know what's in the government code. So I don't never believed in none of these commissions. All they are is a bunch of waste of time. And I've been in many of them in Los Angeles. I used to belong to the Project Area Committee for the redevelopment. I believed in that. Those are farces too, because they went and did what they wanted anyway. And that's what really happens. We don't seem to complain when all this money is being given away to other countries from this country, when the money should be used here at home for the people that really need it. We now have troops in 137 countries in the world, out of the 140-something that exist. Nobody complains about all that money being spent, and I'm talking about billions, and then we wonder why we don't have the things that we need. Now, another thing is, no small group or 2 or 3 people are going to decide anything. You got 74,000 registered voters in Moreno Valley. You also have something you don't see here is a silent majority, which is the Latino community, which is the majority of the city. And it's very quiet. But I think we proved some points after the elections this time around, when we got all the people that we got elected, because we were involved in those elections. And that's going to happen again. So I'm not going to worry about committees anymore, because all you all do is sit there and socialize and talk back and forth, and then come. That's why you have that mic up there in the public comment section. So the 74,000 or others that would like to address their concerns can get up there and address them. That's what it's for. Otherwise, why have public comment? Gracias.
Thank you very much. And there are a lot of good points that were just made. And in terms of just a political scientist point of view, we do have a representative form of government. You do elect people. I notice in your next comment section there, you sort of hit to that. And I guess the point is, we all stood an election. We're all recently elected with the exception of Richard. And
Excuse me, I got a comment.
oh yeah, sorry.
Are we talking about the formation of the 5 council members?
We are.
Okay, let's start with that. And you asked a very important question on the Constitution. I'd like to ask you one.
I probably can't pass the
Okay,
test.
what was the overlying reason why we fought the Revolutionary War and made the Constitution? What was the overlying reason of that, and why we set up the Constitution the way it was?
Well, that's a compound question, and so it can't be answered the way you asked it, but I'll try my best. You know, most scholars would say that we fought the Revolutionary War for a myriad of reasons. Taxation without representation. It really came down to one thing: home rule. The colonists wanted to have more to say about their form of government than they were being given, although they were given more freedom than any other colonies in the British Empire. It wasn't enough, because there's a major difference in the Constitution. The Constitution talks about 2 things. It talks about freedom and it talks about equality. But you cannot have equality unless there is freedom. Freedom first, equality second. So the patriots demanded freedom because they could not be equal subjects. If they were subjects, they were not equal. They could not obtain equality with other British subjects until they were free. And so for freedom, they fought the Revolutionary War in order to become equal. And there are a lot of confusion today about equality and freedom. People seem to think more about equality now. They want things equal. They want equal outcomes. But the bottom line is there can be no equality without freedom.
And
so that's the reason why we fought the Revolutionary War. Now, the second part of your question is, you wanted to know about why the Constitution. The Constitution was written primarily in the fashion in which it was because the framers of the Constitution, you have to understand that the Articles of Confederation had no limits to government. It was mostly states' rights. Each state had its own religion. each state, and you know, people say that this country was founded on a freedom of religion. That does not mean that we didn't have religion, because up until the 1820s and 40s, every state had a state religion. So, and the Constitution was founded primarily and framed the way it was primarily for one reason: the fear of the framers and the people for an autocratic form of government to take over. So they did not want one branch of the government to have more power over the other. So they basically set up a government that pit itself against itself. So that, everybody says, well, you know what we need in Washington is consensus. The framers of the Constitution would say, no, what we need is a government that does not have consensus and moves very slowly. Because if a government has consensus, it will infringe upon the rights and the freedoms of the governed. So this system that we have was set up intentionally to be a cumbersome, bureaucratic form of government that did not accomplish sweeping legislation. In fact, Thomas Jefferson's papers he wrote in his papers that every issue put before the Congress of the United States should have a period of 1 year before it is adopted, 1 year of debate, because they wanted the government to move slowly. So they came up with a federal form of government, but it was a separation of powers, which is mostly Rousseau. And it basically gives each one equal powers so that the government moves slowly. It cannot become oppressive to the people. And so it was out of that fear. The reason you have a Second Amendment is precisely that reason. It was not knives and forks. In fact, there were laws in the 1790s that required households to purchase a gun, a rifle. The Second Amendment was precisely to prevent a government takeover of freedom and allow the people to rise up and defend their freedom. Thomas Jefferson said the tree of liberty must be fed frequently with the blood of patriots. So so this government was formed precisely under the Constitution to be a slow, deliberative process with no section of the government having power over the other.
And the short way to say this, and the less long-winded way, is to say that we have a government that what we fought for was to limit government power and specifically to eliminate consolidated power. And to bring it down to Moreno Valley in the way this charter is being written, you look at the 5 council members. That's what was selected in this. And then you skip over to the mayor's veto power. The mayor has veto power, and the council has to override, it says, by 2/3. Well, if you only have 5 council members, that means you got to have 4 council members to override a veto. That's 80%. That's consolidating the government power, consolidating the power, more power in the mayor's office than the council, because now you have to have 80% of the council to override. That's precisely what we fought against England, in their totalitarian King George government, telling us what to do by one person. He got to dictate. That's what I'm saying. We fought against this. And if we're going to write the overall philosophy of this charter, are we going to write it where we're going to consolidate government power, consolidate it down to one person, or are we going to spread this out and make it a more based on the Constitution and the philosophies and everything that was done when we first did it back in 1776, or are we going to revert back to the history of a totalitarian
So my
power?
question to you is under
Yes.
the current form of government, how many councilmen do you need to prevail?
Well, if you want a specific 2/3, you would have to have 6 council members or 9.
No, how many do you need to prevail in a given issue?
In a given a majority,
Which is
which is what?
3.
3 and a 5 months,
Right.
which is 60%.
Right. So 3 is what it takes now.
Yes.
Okay. So, I don't know if you're catching the irony of your argument. You're asking for slower government, more deliberate government with less power, but yet you grant 3 people pretty broad power, and then you complain when you say it should be
Well, not
it should be a
necessarily.
supermajority. It should be a supermajority of 4. It would be harder to pass things if you had 4
Not
correct?
Not necessarily. If you had six, let's say you have 6 council members, let's say the mayor breaks a tie. Now
Well,
you have to have 4 or 7.
In this charter, the mayor does not vote.
That's what I'm saying. There's an overriding philosophy of this charter where the mayor has pretty broad and pretty specific powers. He can pretty much dictate unless 4 council, 80% of the council overrides, he can.
So
he has
your
a lot-
solution
he
to
has
that,
a lot of
your
power.
solution to that would be what?
Is to reorganize it where my solution would be if you want a 2/3 override, you need 6 council members and the mayor would break a tie. That way you have 7, so you would have 4 or 7 to pass anything.
Well,
If
Roy,
there was a
in my
controversial
draft, the mayor broke the tie. So
Well,
I
okay.
didn't win the argument.
Well, that's what I'm saying. And this is the same thing. The draft, to me, looks like a pretty consolidated group got together and drafted it. There wasn't a broad opinion. There wasn't a lot of people that were asked about it that I know
This is the
about.
language precisely out of the City of Oakland's charter, which has had about 20 revisions over the course of the last 50 years.
And we're going to use Oakland as an example of what we want to
I'm just
follow.
saying, Roy, it's not our draft. It's not our language. And it's language that has been tested. In fact of the matter is, this went to a citywide vote just several years ago, and because the City of Oakland was on a sunset provision, and by 67%, the citizens of Oakland approved the measure to continue with this form of government in this language. So
That's-
Also, the state of California follows this language. If the governor vetoes, it takes 2/3 of the legislature to overturn the veto.
I got Roy's point, though, in terms of the math, and I think the most important thing is that you want us to consider 6 councilmen instead of 5.
Well, what I want you to consider is how we're gonna limit, and I don't see that where everybody's asking for this, that, where you limit things, and you get back to your equality thing, where we get back to a philosophy where we're gonna treat every resident equal in here, where you don't have, if you're gonna, let's say Richard's example of the redevelopment agency where you give back a tax increase or give back sales tax.
Right.
Well, if it's good enough for one business, why isn't it good enough for every business? If one business, one person, 100 people, 10,000 people employed, if one business gets a tax rebate, why shouldn't every business get that same sales tax? That's what equality is. And if you take that philosophy, like Raul was talking about, if you take that philosophy, that's where government is treating everybody equal, not picking and choosing. If there's not picking and choosing on redevelopment or contracts, we don't have the argument Ms. Reeder's bringing up, or Raul's bringing up, or everybody
Well, the
brings up.
simple answer to that under redevelopment is there was not an unlimited supply of money, so choices have to be made. If we printed our own money like the federal government, probably okay, but we don't. So there was a specific amount of money, so choices have to be made. That's what the elected officials were. And in your first comment, when you talked about the difference between why this is no different than Britain, here's the difference. In this one, you don't like what we do, you vote us out. In the colonial times, the governor was appointed by the king, and if you didn't like the governor, tough. So there is a major difference, and it is exactly to Raul's point. You don't like us, vote us out. You know, and I'll tell you, you want to run for city council, I'll pay for your sign-up fee. I'll be the first to sign your
You gonna
petition.
be my main fundraiser too?
Yes, I will. I will do everything for you. I will help you. But the point is, that's the whole point of the government. This is an elected representative government, and when the people have the ultimate veto, they just throw us out.
And I didn't say we were going to be exactly like I said. We're moving in the direction to that and away from the direction of with the way that draft is. We're moving away from the United States Constitution model and closer to the England, not precisely exactly like it. That's why I say the easier you make it to consolidate power, the easier it is for special interests to control. If you have it spread out, if you have the
Well,
separation
I
of
have
powers
some news for you
across-
right now.
Yes.
The power in this city is precisely consolidated. And the city council has very little power right now. And do you know who holds all the power in this city? the city manager. And when is the last time you
Exactly.
voted for the city manager?
Exactly.
When is the last time?
Never.
So you want to talk about government without representation?
But you said.
No,
you
I'm
said-
just asking you a simple question.
Okay, and I'm gonna ask you the question. You said we can reelect the people that we could diselect the people that appointed the
But
city
it
manager.
takes 3 votes to fire the city manager, and I'm going to tell you, city managers are very adept at counting votes and currying 3 votes.
And if you wanna go back to my philosophy, like you asked what I wanted, the way I would structure it would be that the 6 council members would each represent their district, and the mayor would basically be the city manager, and he would provide overall, and he would be like the CEO.
That is exactly what this draft charter does,
Yes.
with the exception that it provides for 5 councilmen instead of 6.
Well, I guess, I know this is good between the two of you, but I happen to agree with him, is that we have a council of 5 that's elected by district. So, you know, right now, the way things are, the 3 council members hired the city manager, 3 council members approve ordinances, and there's very rare opportunities where it's necessary to have 4. And one of them is the provision in the 424 for emergency ordinances is also certain other things take supermajority. But I guess in this case, the mayor's power would be that if he agrees with the minority of 2, then he has the ability to stop whatever it is that the 3 want to do merely by being so siding with the minority. And I guess that's something you need to really think about. We need to really
We
think
need to
about it.
discuss the numbers of councilmen, because Roy's point is something that we need to think about.
Well, I agree, but I think, Roy, one of the things is having a smaller council number of districts, the power of each council member is greater. And you, as a member of that district, have more say in the government because there's only 5. If you go to 6 or 7 or whatever it is, it's almost darn near impossible to get a whole bunch, to get that many. Even to vote anything in Riverside takes 4. And I think that means then that as a council district, your vote for your council member has less power. Instead of being 3 out of 5, it's 4 out of 7. And just do the math. I think the system right now with 5 is very, very good. And I think there's some discussion as to whether or not this veto thing, it needs to work that way. But I understand the reason for it. Maybe we're going to, is this today we're discussing this?
Yeah, but you know, I think we've heard, thank you, Roy, I appreciate it. But
Just one last point, and you could argue it either way. It could be more responsive because each member has less people, in a 6 versus 5, each member has less people to deal with versus 5. So that could be argued either way. But like I said, if you take it the way I'm saying, to set it up like that, and 2, the mayor needs to be elected. He has if you take the way I did it, and he has 2/3, he can veto at 2/3. He has a little bit more power because he's the CEO or city manager, kind of running everything. But he needs to be more accountable. He needs to be elected every 2 years. 2 reasons for this: that for the accountability issue, and if you have districts, your council member you elect every 4 years. But if the mayor's elected every 2 years, that way every citizen votes every 2 years, and you have two people you can appeal to. If you don't agree with, or maybe you don't get along with your city council, you can always go to the mayor. You have 2 deals, and you have every 2 years you have a say in things.
okay, we got it. Thank you. All right, so back to you, Deanna.
What section are you on, Deanna?
Actually, we're still on,
We didn't progress too far here.
yeah, we
Back
went
to
from
400?
400 and now we're at 401.
Yeah, because he was in 424 and 420 later on, way back.
I think we've already talked or addressed to 401 for you. We're never going to come to an agreement, but at least we've talked about it.
Right.
And then elections by district, you have a comment. Could you read your comment?
Again, you need to ask people if this is what they want. This city paid for door hangers on every door when they wanted a ballot measure passed with a CSD revenue increase. How much are you spending to try and get the current revenue measure passed? And what are you going to do to get more public input? I know that last year when you had the original WLC meeting at the conference center, you sent out how many thousands of email invitations. So I know this stuff is online.
Well, but
I know
beyond-
it's available,
But beyond that, you haven't
And-
got to the part where we're gonna get to all of this.
but see, but I want that to be part of the charter, what you're going to do to solicit income from people.
Well, okay, but ultimately,
Input. Did
Input.
I said income, I'm sorry.
We'll get to their income later.
yeah,
Well,
okay,
you're getting to
Deanna,
that now,
that's okay,
come on.
Deanna. But listen, the ultimate thing is this. If the people don't feel they've been adequately informed, they just vote against the charter. But we will have a schedule of public hearings at every section of the way, and there will be plenty of public input. So I don't think that needs to be part of the charter. I don't know about you two guys, but listen, if we don't uphold that end of the bargain, the charter won't pass.
You know what? I actually can't say that I agree with that. People vote for things that they don't necessarily know everything that's in there. Look at some of the laws we have on the books at the moment that people have voted for.
We voted for Obamacare, and we don't know much about it.
Well, I think the other side of it is the general rule that I always followed when I didn't know something is if I don't understand it or I don't know, I just vote no. It's safe that nothing changes. So I think that there's a very much more difficult task to overcome is to get people to vote in favor of something that they don't know about.
So, on your member term limits, it's kind of gobbledy there. I feel you were having program problems there. I'm open to 3 terms.
Well, what you have down here is that you can run for 2 terms, and then if you leave out a term, you can run for another 2 terms later.
Yeah.
And I think
That's
that
I got you.
So
So you're
basically
saying
that
total
means-
of 3.
that means that but you don't say that. You
But
don't
no,
stop
you're-
it at 3.
no, you're-
But wait,
I got
Okay.
it. But your suggestion is that they be 12 total.
well, no, what I said was 2 terms or 3 terms, and that's it, and it doesn't make any difference if they're consecutive or not. Someone might want to run from a term now, they didn't get reelected, they might want to run for one later. You're only addressing this as 2 consecutive terms, and if you have 4 years between them, then you can run for another 2 consecutive
Right.
terms, which means that you can be on here for 16 years out of a 20-year span.
But you have to
And
miss one
that's
election cycle.
not- I don't think that's reasonable. I don't think that's
All
what
right.
the people want. So I think this is
So if
something we
you
need to
s-
talk about,
If you said
if I said.
2 successive terms and 3 total, that would be 12 years, but would
I
you be
changed-
agreeable to that, or do you want to just say 2 successive terms, period?
It doesn't need to be successive, 3 terms, period, whether they're successive or non-successive.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, 2 or 3, I said 3 because some people told me 3. So I'm okay with, you know, what the majority of people want, but a particular number of terms, that's it, whether it's successive or non-successive.
All right.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk about it now or not?
No, what I was thinking, we can make comments back. I think
Well,
that's
I was going to
appropriate.
say is that I've looked at a couple other ones, and most of the ones that I've seen out, and I haven't written them down, most of them go the way that you have 2 terms as a term limit, and then you have a break. And if the person is successful in getting reelected again, why would you want to have them limited again? They should be like any other person getting elected, to go for another 2 terms, and then that's it. I mean, that's just because the reason for term limits is generally not because the person isn't good. The reason for term limits is to stop an ingrained incumbent from having that significant advantage of the incumbency. And if you stayed out for 4 years, obviously the people want you back. They wouldn't have reelected you after 4 years. And why would you then want to force the people to only have it be for 4? I think that 2 terms and a break and then 2 terms, I think, is adequate. And most of the ones, if you can show me some others that are different, most of them that I've seen have say it that way. Have you seen
So-
any other that don't? Deanna, let me know.
I also would say is, I don't think in the history of the city anyone's ever made a comeback. I don't think there are any.
Okay, Roy?
You could say David Horspool.
Well.
That was different. That was different. It was
that
the same
That
election.
was the same election.
What he did is illegal now. It couldn't happen
I
again.
know, right,
And,
we got the
um,
Horspool rule.
So yeah, you know, again,
It's got a ring to it, doesn't it? The horse pool rule?
February 12th.
Anyway, on term limits, don't we have term limits and they're called elections? And isn't term limits really about is really about you telling somebody else who they can vote for in somebody else's district? If that district wants to put a consecutive or 87 terms in, That's the people of that district's right, and they should be able to vote for whoever they want as long as they meet the qualifications.
I will tell you, this city wants term limits. They've unequivocally voted for it, and we're gonna put it in. I mean, I understand some people say you should be able to run for your entire life, and look what happens in Congress where we have people like that. You really don't have elections. That's true, but the incumbents have such phenomenal fundraising and other benefits, which is the reason for term limits. Whether we should or shouldn't have them, the voters of this city want them, and we're gonna put them in because otherwise I don't think this charter is gonna pass.
And
So
somehow,
I apologize, we're never gonna agree on it.
and somehow or another, someday, Deanna Reeder and I will find a way to put finance limitations too. We're gonna, we need to get it, we've got some obstacles there we gotta overcome, but we agree with them.
Federal Constitution.
Yeah.
But as someone who's been on the council for as many years as I have, I will agree that I think term limits are necessary. I think, as I was mentioning to Tom earlier today, the Air Force has a rule on their wing commanders. They serve for a period of 4 years generally, and then they change them. And the reason is because people have a tendency to put their emphasis on what they're interested in. Like I'm interested in microphones and not computers. And after a period of time, the microphones get all the attention and the computers get sort of done. I think 8 years is plenty to get things done. You get the cycles of economy and everything. But I think a 4-year break, sometimes it's hard to find people to run for these offices. It really isn't easy. It's hard enough to get people to apply for the Planning Commission. And I've gone out in the past and tried really hard to get diversity, to get African Americans and Hispanics, and it's not easy.
But listen,
So I think
Richard will attest to this. The advantages of an incumbent are great. And so if there aren't term limits, I want to ask you, how many people had an opportunity in the last 22 years to run for an election, really run for election and have an opportunity to win or a chance of winning in the city? Not many. Term limits allow people like yourself to have an equal playing field because there'll be an open seat.
Didn't you beat an incumbent?
Yeah, but you know how much money it required to do it? It's obscene. And she spent more. So the bottom line is that incumbency sometimes is great, and I'm with Richard. And if you can't, in 8 years, you become, the first year or two, you're maybe learning your way. But then you hit your stride, and if in 8 years you can't get done what you need to be done, then you can't form the right coalitions or whatever it takes to make it work. So I think Deanna's idea, I think Richard and I agree with Deanna more than we do you, Roy, and I'm sorry, but that's just the way it is.
I would say if you're gonna go with a 2-term limits, that's it. You're done.
But then that's a 4-year.
Because you can, if you have a mayor in there, if you run for 2 terms city council, then you could, if you want to come back and run for 2 terms as mayor, there you go. You got another officer. You can step up the ladder or do whatever. If you're gonna have them effective.
I think what this subcommittee is going to do, because we're kind of, Richard and I are kind of the same opinion here. I do think we need to spend some time. We'll discuss and look at other cities to see if there isn't a way to incorporate that makes some sense. I think yours is a reasonable thing to just say 3 terms. I don't like 3 successive terms. I would just say 2 successive terms and 3 total.
That's why I actually added that, non-successives, is so that they don't have to be in a row. I mean,
right. I would make sure that they aren't in a row, because I think 8 years is enough for one person.
One thing I would have a question of that, how would you do it? Like, say, would that go from, let's say you ran in District 1 and you ran 2 terms. Now, can you move to District 2 and run 2 terms?
Oh, hey, I'm in a charter meeting over here. I'll give you a comment.
No.
It's just basically you're up
it's for the
channeling
office. It
information
has
from
nothing
the
to do
day.
with the district.
Because I already spoke.
The way it's
spoke of
written,
that
and if it isn't, we'll make sure.
Just make
That's
sure.
what I would
I know.
clarify that, because
Okay.
we could get back to the horse pool.
So now let's move on here. Alvin, how are you?
I think 405 is
Lower it down. That way you don't have to stand.
405, Tom. Mike and I were just chatting offline here, and we have that opinion letter, and there's some other things about Mike may have a solution to that.
Okay.
405 number 2A2 is wrong. Is not in accordance with the opinion letter. Because
No, we do not have an opinion letter. We're asking for one.
No, we already have it.
You're talking about the Myers
You're
audit.
reading
Right, right.
What do you?
In terms of what's the number of days immediately preceding? don't we have one on that, Mike? Isn't that what
Yeah,
you're talking
yeah.
about?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the letter that's attached to this thing.
Okay, I think we were looking at Deanna's.
Yeah, really.
Oh, I'm not looking at Deanna's, no, I'm sorry, I'm looking at our main draft.
It's 4052.
Yeah, 4052.
4052.
So in Deanna's, though, you're talking about.
I don't have Deanna's, that's why I'm saying. I know.
Can you take us through this, Deanna?
What mine did is it made the requirements for an appointee the exact same as if they were elected, the same timeframes. In other words, you can't appoint someone that just registered to vote at the time of appointment, and yet someone that was going to be elected to the office had to be there for 6 months.
So in other words, what you would say would be, the requirements for appointment shall be the same as for an elected, period?
See, that's what I'm saying, you could say it.
Right? That sounds okay, doesn't it, Tom? And we don't want an appointed person to not have met the requirements that would have to be if they were gonna be elected.
I think that was our intent.
Yeah, so let's just
So
change
if we
that.
didn't do it, we need to change it.
Well, it'd probably be number 5 on that A. If appointed to such office, you might say is, an appointee to such office shall meet all requirements of
Meet the same
qualification,
requirements as-
same requirements as 1 through 4 above.
Right. Okay.
Does that sound good, Deanna?
Yeah.
Same, that's,
right.
I mean,
So,
and then it says it shall have been, okay. But the big thing has to do with the number of days. We have a letter of opinion on that.
Well, just so that an appointee doesn't get to have an amount of time that's less than someone that's being elected. That is.
Yeah, and I think that serves us well, because it's possible that the appointee may be the best qualified person. They should be able to run for election. It'd be horrible to have an appointee and say, this is the best councilman we ever have, but they can't run for election.
If this, okay. So where are we now, Deanna? Take us through your.
I think you're, after number 5, we're probably about,
Let's hit the big ones, so that,
Okay, which one do you think is the big one?
I'm gonna leave that to you. And we'll read them all, and we'll take them all into consideration, but let's hit the ones that mean the most
Okay,
to you.
the next paragraph was, any determination as to whether a person has met the eligibility requirements shall be made at the time the nomination papers are filed and at the time of taking office. But what happens if you find out later that they weren't eligible? So as long as they took office, it doesn't matter? If they,
No, actually, they would have to prove that they were eligible before when they took the papers out, and that does happen.
And I will answer your question. If somebody lies on their electoral documents, it's perjury. It can be charged as a felony, and you'll be removed from office, and you might spend time in the state prison. So, if you lie and say, I live at this address and you don't, and it turns out you don't, the district attorney and/or the attorney general can, and in some jurisdictions have filed criminal charges against the person for perjury. So that's taken care of under penal law.
It actually happened in Los Angeles County.
Yes. Well, it's happened in other places, just the DAs wouldn't prosecute.
Yeah.
In LA, they are prosecuting.
oh, in redistricting, the only thing that I
What
really.
section?
2 or 3 paragraphs down, it doesn't really have a.
Well, what it says in the event of redistricting after C?
Yes, right.
Okay.
The residency of an incumbent shall not be a criterion for redistricting.
Oh,
Just
no.
because sometimes if the,
Explain what you mean by that.
Well, what she's saying is you could be kicked out of office by redistricting, and
well, certain lines make sense and certain lines don't make sense. But if it's redistricted, you need to be able to finish out your term, and then when your term's up, you can't run if you're in a different district. But,
Well, the redistricting by law, it's my understanding, doesn't take effect until the next election.
well, it doesn't.
Is that true?
Yeah, but it's, I think what she's saying is that when you're redistricting, you shouldn't consider trying to make the district comfortable for the incumbent that's there
Okay,
now.
what I'm actually
Right?
saying
Is that,
is
am I
that-
saying that?
You don't
It's
want
the
to
first time
gerrymander the
that-
district.
Well, you know what, I really didn't know where everyone lived on the redistricting. So the first redistricting map I did, I put a council member in a different district. I didn't do it on purpose. I actually didn't know that that's where they lived. I wasn't trying to do it on purpose, but, I was making the lines all nice and straight and making everything as compact, and I actually moved a council member, and there was discussion that, but the law itself actually does not require that you take a council member's residency into account when you redistrict. And at that time, the city council made the direction that you have to take the council member's residency into account. And so I'm just saying that does not make sense to me.
Oh, I think it has to be considered. You have to recognize you can't ignore it. And I don't think that we had a policy that we must. We
No,
had a
it
lot of
was
things.
written.
We have a lot of things that we did, and I think that was only what you end up with if you don't do that. Is you end up with people trying to district out people intentionally.
So
In other words,
state it clearly for me, I'm sorry.
Well, exactly.
What do you want us not to do?
The residency of an incumbent shall not be a criterion for redistricting.
So give me
Just
an
adding that sentence.
I got that, but the sentence doesn't mean anything to me. So you need to give me a help here. I'm not,
We're not going to redistrict again for 7 years,
right.
most likely. So,
I'm not sure of that, but go
well,
ahead.
that's why I said most likely.
Okay.
But if we do redistrict, if there's a lot more people at one end and moving a line towards that direction makes sense, then that's what we need to do.
Without regard to who the incumbent is.
Right.
I agree with you 100%.
Okay, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah. So it just said.
Okay,
you know,
well, if you can make it sound better, that's fine with me.
Do you agree or not?
I disagree.
I think he said
if
no.
you start, well, I mean, you don't, there's no hard and fast rule. And when I met with a consultant, and I've done this redistricting several times, he told me that although it's not a important, significant criteria that makes or breaks, more important is to comply with the law and the equality and the diversity, et cetera. It's something that almost every city that the consultant had dealt with does look at least to be aware of it.
Put
So
your
it's
2
not a
cents
hard.
in, Mr. Advisor. Earn your
Sure.
keep.
First of all, the city council has to pass on the
Redistricting.
redistricting. So if everyone's pushed out of their district, they're not going to vote for it. Number one. Number two is, again, redistricting is not supposed to be, you can use it as a political tool either way. It allows if you specifically said you can't take it into account, then it could easily allow a simple majority to kick out at least two council members
Right.
by redistricting around them. And again, moving someone into a different district is tantamount to they're no longer an incumbent as a practical matter. It could be, depending on how much of their
So
old
you
district
agree with
remains.
Richard?
I do agree with Richard. I don't think it's necessary to put in. I don't think it adds anything.
This is a first. You've agreed with Richard.
No, Mike and I agree all the
We agree
time.
on a lot of things.
We just don't tell you.
Anyhow, I don't think it's that. I think the general law city requirements for redistricting are fine, and I don't think we need to add anything. That was
So
my thoughts.
are there other methods of redistricting? I know some, there are
We could get 5 retired judges just to do it.
well, I honestly, my question is we redistrict and we're still out of balance. I think it's your district that's underpopulated.
I don't know, I have the thing right here.
So it just seems like the current system might not be
But
working all that great.
Part of the things, there's so many factors in what's important. Like, I had never really had any retail. And when they did some redistricting before, I lost the area that was south of Ironwood and east of Frederick, which is some businesses in there. That was Hemlock, that area, just a few stores and things like that. So this particular case, it shifted over. I think the one, Chris Baca left, but they shifted over and I ended up with the mall. Well, there aren't any people living in the mall, but it's just a question of what your responsibilities are. I think the population tells the tale, but the reality is that, like Marcelo Coast District, the voter percentage is half of what it is in my district. I mean, traditionally, I've looked at the numbers.
Well, if
so-
you look at districts 1, 3, and 5, just for the hell of it while he's looking this up. 1, 3, and 5.
Okay, I got it right here, okay.
This is the new one,
District
right?
Moreno Valley, yeah. There are, well, they don't have the population, they just have voters, that's not
Well,
helpful.
give us the voters.
Total, there's 83,000 voters and 41,000 households.
So, you know, what
There's a huge disparity
there's
in
less than
registered voters.
50% registered voters in this community. And in many of the districts, 1, 3, and 5, they vote in an off-year election less than 30%, and in a general election, probably in the area of 40 or 45%. Two districts, my district and Richard's district, register in higher percentages and vote in the 65 and 70%. So, you know, it's what Raul was talking about in terms, there's a large portion of population in this city that choose not to register. There's a large portion of people in this city who choose not to vote if they are registered. And they are the silent majority for all intents and purposes. And so we need to be aware of that.
And I think a lot of those that he's alluding to are not legal to vote anyway. We have a lot of residents in this city that are, for different reasons, they may be here on a green card, or they may not be on here on any card.
Certainly doesn't approach half.
No, but
So.
a lot.
Yeah, if and you can go back and look on the tapes on the redistricting, but if you look at the map I submitted, number 8, it addresses 2 of those concerns, because it had 4 of the 5 districts had most of the undeveloped property split equally, and 2, the districts I drawed more across the lines of where that population, the population was diverse more, you had more of the mix of the community in all the districts, but we elected, and this is where it goes back to the political process, mine got shot down, but, it got back to the same old, basically how we've done it before.
Well,
So,
that's why
it depends. If people really want to change, we can come up with a ways to change.
That's why I wonder, should we consider a different method of redistricting?
You know, again, I met with a consultant, and I met with Chris. That's the only person that presented anything that met with me. You didn't make an appointment or anything. But when I picked the one I voted for, 99% of my reason for picking the one I did was because of the consultant's input. I mean, the residents came in with ideas and with suggestions, but when I had write down the gentleman with the British accent.
Alan Paulson.
Yeah.
He did ask you to change that.
I'm saying is that when you have a consultant who doesn't have a dog in the fight, but has done this in many, many, many cities, he listens to us and interviewed us and took into consideration a lot of different factors. So
I think that this is something that we need to put down for further discussion. We'll get back to you with some different ideas. It may not change, but I believe it's worth further research and discussion, and we'll put it on that. You know, I happen to know that my memory serves me correctly, we ended up with a redistricting plan that was unbalanced. And the cynic in me says that there was a reason why it was unbalanced. Because if you were trying to make it balanced, you would have made it balanced. So that's just the cynic in me, okay? So we can't resolve that here, so let's keep going.
I didn't get to it here. Number 9, holding other office. You addressed if you run for another office in the city, but you really didn't address when you run for another office that isn't within the city, like a state.
So you're on 409?
Yes, I'm on 409. Most of the appointing and stuff seemed pretty standard to me.
you're talking like a school board member or something like that? I think there's already a lot of that, isn't there?
Yeah,
Well, there is.
incompatible offices.
Right. I just put any other elected office, that it would serve as a resignation from the office that you have as soon as the election is certified.
City attorney?
If you are elected to an incompatible office, you automatically vacate the office you held prior.
Right. So that's state law, and we don't have to add that in here?
That would be my.
Okay.
If somebody wants to run for something that's not incompatible, as a councilman, it's a part-time job. I don't think we want or can stop them. I don't know what it would be.
No, she's right, the state law does say that, but that, I wasn't sure if we're writing our charter, if we needed it in here. So if the state law governs, then that's a redundant.
Well, it says here, which is authorized by state law, or where the offices are not incompatible.
And the state law does tell what an incompatible office is, and there are attorney general opinions that clarify.
Well, but
Or try to.
Or try
not-
to.
Isn't not incompatible a double negative? It's a, so if you take the not out and it's are incompatible, would make more sense, wouldn't it?
Which,
The last sentence of 409, not my comments before, on the top of mine. The last sentence, the last two words.
No, if they're incompatible, they're incompatible. If they're not incompatible, they're not.
That's true.
Incompatible means they conflict.
Right.
If you say not, that means they don't conflict.
yeah,
They either conflict or they don't conflict.
So you say the language is correct?
yeah.
Yeah.
such as author-
The word incompatible is almost synonymous with
Saying that you
conflict.
can if they're not.
Yes. Okay.
Do you want to address the residency requirement issues?
Let's
I
get,
have my
can we
view.
get through Deanna's concerns first, and then we'll just skip over to those?
Down to 413, and we had just talked about the Citizens Advisory Committee. I stuck this on several things because I really thought that you needed input. If somewhere in there, you put that for a diverse group, wherever it needs to be.
Okay. You know, it's our intent to, it was our intent initially to not get in and suggest every committee for the city, but to just say committees would be formed by ordinance, kind of like they did the Bill of Rights after the acceptance of the charter, but
There may be some that we want
there
that
would
are
be some
permanent.
that we could name, and so that's, we got,
That won't be
we'll put
here.
we'll put a star here, okay?
What
All right.
section are you on now, Deanna?
Well, moving
She's
on
past
to
409.
414 or 415.
You have two 414s and two 415s, just by the way.
You know, I have to tell you, this is, I corrected all of this,
Yeah, I see it.
and when they printed these for this meeting again, they took the early draft, not the corrected draft, so I got that.
Well, you know
Sorry.
what, the only reason I noticed it was because I made myself notes and I went back to go fix it and I'm going, wait a minute, this
It's
is
not
not,
the-
it had nothing to do with my notes. And I'm like,
Yeah, I think
how did I
408
get,
and
how did I
409
make that
is
big a
wrong too.
mistake?
Was-
That's when I realized it.
Yeah, there's two others in here, I think, too, sorry.
There might be, but I didn't notice them. And most of this, the investigations, the part in investigations on 415, I guess I'm looking for clarification on whether this is mainly employees that you are talking about, or if it's citizens you're also talking about.
Where is it? What section?
The first
415, yeah.
You know,
Yeah, the
415, number
first-
one.
okay, all right.
Yeah.
See, and I'm looking at your notes, so what, in your
The
no-
italicized part,
what
my
number
questions
in
was
your
just-
notes?
what number? Four,
Your 415 is
the,
talking.
the first 415.
See, I don't
So,
have
no,
a sec-
on the next pages,
got it,
they're
I
at the
got it.
top of the next page.
Got it, okay,
Because I think my notes changed your page numbers.
yes. Sorry.
I'm just wondering, does this apply mostly to employees? They have
I think
to? Or does it, I just want to know if we're
I
talking.
think this is about anything.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
You know, the purpose of this is to grant the council's investigative powers and subpoena powers so that it does not have to rely on, it gives it the power of same power as an oath. So when it's trying to get to the bottom of something, takes on an extra, gives them some extra power to investigate. any matter.
Well, the affairs of the city, I'm thinking, let's say that the city council wants to look into the Chamber of Commerce. Is that considered the affairs of the city?
I think if they thought there was malfeasance and
Well,
there
if
was,
they got city money.
and
if
there's
they-
city money involved in it, and there's malfeasance, I think it would certainly be fair game.
To be a wide definition of affairs, huh?
That was my concern.
But if
It
it's a
just seemed
private
to
agency, the
cover
city has no
anything.
authority.
Well, the point of this is that nothing can be covered up. Any councilman can investigate anything if he has the, the votes on the council, and they can ask for subpoena power and take testimony. I think this is someone who spends as much time as you do investigating the city ought to love this.
Well, the only thing I'm worried about is I don't have a problem with that. I just know that, I have neighbors, and I'll tell them, well, you know what, why don't you go anywhere? It's not even just neighbors, talk to people everywhere. We'll go tell the council or go say, no, I don't want anybody to be upset with me. And I guess I'm just worried that some neighbor that might, you might subpoena them for something and they don't want to talk about.
Well, I do.
There's too many people that just don't want to get involved. I'm not one of them, but.
Yeah, but
but I have concerns for those that are. Do you know what I'm saying?
Point about maybe some clarity on the affairs of, we'll see what we can do to put some clarifying language there.
Yeah, that's a bad word.
Yeah, all right.
The only thing I would say is maybe, just for consideration, is you might want to put a 2/3 vote on that too, just so if you're going to subpoena, that it's a supermajority of the council, and that might eliminate some concerns of people just saying, that you're just trying to go after somebody specifically. That it would, if you're going down that road, that it's clear that something's up and needs to be investigated.
I think the first thing we have to do is take a step back from this. Investigating in the terms of legislative investigating is a proper form of oversight. And, if we have a problem right now in our federal government is that there's not been great oversight. So investigation should not be made terribly difficult because it is a proper form of oversight. The interesting thing is study sessions are the only time that we have an opportunity to ask questions, and there's still it's still cumbersome. So this is just another vehicle for oversight. So I don't want to make it so hard. I think 3 members of a 5-man council that think something needs to be investigated. Why not? I think what's more important is that it should be limited what they investigate. They should not be able to investigate, if we take after Deanna, a list of Deanna's friends because she talks at every meeting. So I think that's what we need to, we'll tighten that up. We'll come up, city attorney will come up with some language, and then we'll get back to you with another draft, okay?
We're about 3 o'clock.
Yeah, we're getting close here.
All right. I'll make some of these really quick. Because some of those that do the committees, I wrote the same thing several times about a citizens committee. Now, 416, now this one I think is important, is any one council member may introduce legislation. If that legislation is not approved or, voted on or, dies for not enough votes, it may not be introduced again except by 2 council members or at least 1 year has expired. I mean, one council member can't bring the same thing at every meeting if people aren't for it. If you get to the point where 2 council members want it, but
That's
there are times that I think one council member should be able to bring something forward, and that isn't your procedure right now. I think that needs to be
Currently,
fixed.
right now, it takes 2 council
Right.
members. The only person the city administrator or city manager can bring anything
I
on
know
his,
that.
and so can the mayor.
I know. Oh, well, that I actually didn't know, but yeah, I think any council member can bring it forward. If nobody wants it,
do you think,
maybe
Michael?
next year you can try it, but.
I say if you can't get one other council member to agree with you, you're just doing it for reasons that don't make any sense. I mean, I think you could end up with a huge waste of time. Every council member just wanting to bring up something they know it's never going to go anywhere. They just want to bring it up and make a deal out of it. If you can't get one other person out of 5 to agree with you, or the mayor, then no one's going to support it, and you're just wasting time, and you're doing it for some improper purpose. you know, it's just not that hard to get. I think most of the council members would second just about anything if asked. You know, but if nobody else in the city has any interest in it, then why are they bringing it up? It's not going to go anywhere.
Okay, listen,
See if there's anything really important.
we'll put that, as they say, we'll sleep on that.
Okay.
Oh, it's nap time, isn't it? Ask Lauren.
Under, well, a little farther down on 416, when ordinances are required, you go down to number 6, when it says regulate the rates charged for its services by a utility company, and number 7, authorize the borrowing of money except as otherwise provided in this charter. And then later on there, there's something about ad valorem taxes. This is not going to preempt the public's, a need for a public vote on all those tax items that need a vote at this particular time, like 218 and some of the other. Okay, as long as they don't, then it's probably, yeah. I'm just.
Those are, I think those are constitutional amendments.
Those
to
are
the-
valid concerns.
every city
Yeah.
Yeah.
charter city.
I'm just making sure. The procedures for adoption of ordinances, you need to post the whole ordinance, not just the title. You know, not everybody reads the whole thing. In fact, the truth is most people don't, but I do. And so, and there's several other people that do. It's not like I'm the absolute only person. So I'd like 418 is to see the entire
Actually,
ordinance.
Here would be my suggestion. The entire ordinance will be posted on the city's internet site. It's
Okay.
staggeringly expensive to post the whole ordinance in a newspaper.
Oh, yeah.
Staggeringly.
Right. No,
But,
the website's fine.
And we corrected a lot of other places, yeah.
Yeah.
There's no reason the whole
Listen,
ordinance shouldn't be available.
Yeah, I don't need to
And
see it
more
in
people
the.
get internet service than
Right.
get the
We'll
newspaper.
fix that.
Right, and
Okay.
there is the difference between posting and publishing.
Okay.
So, publishing is when you have to do it in the newspaper. Posting is when you just put it on the city's kiosks or on the internet.
Right. I think I left it right at your posting. All I changed was from the title to the ordinance, so it's the whole thing, that's all.
Deanna, I
Simple.
appreciate the time and effort you put into this. Thank you. So I'm not trying to, we do have a couple things here, so if we can get, and listen, we'll hold this over, we're almost through.
Actually, I'm looking to see if there's anything that's really, penalty for violation of ordinances. This is something I guess I'm looking at a even-handed approach so that.
What section are you?
Oh, I'm sorry, 420. Because this doesn't really, it doesn't give me the comfort level that, you know, the same people doing the same things are gonna get the same punishment, just because I know different people have.
Well, I just say, I mean, we actually had something different and put it, the way it is now is the way it is now. I think the city can make it an infraction, a misdemeanor, or a civil offense, and,
Administrative.
or administrative,
remedies.
yeah. So that's, we had some other things in there, and this was much cleaner, and it's no different than it is now. It's, state law says what we can do. Unfortunately, the city council can't make felony rules, but
Well, I wasn't.
dead lawn is now a felony.
No, that wasn't what I
Green
was
shirts
saying.
at meetings, felony.
No, I guess I was just trying to get it somewhere that says the same offenses get the same punishments or prosecutions.
Equal protection is still alive and well, even though some might disagree.
You
But
know what-
again, state and federal law.
No, but you're
mandate.
talking about is equal enforcement.
You know what? That's exactly what I'm talking
And,
about.
you know,
is
the
equal
bottom line
enforcement.
is we're gonna get to that point.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, I just remember with my daughter, not the house she's living in now, but another one. She had an escrow. There's a stupid lien on her house, And every other stupid lawn and that whole darn block looked worse than hers. So I went and I took pictures and I brought them to the city. I'm like, well, look, that's not fair. You can't do something to her when these look worse than hers and it's like next door. And they go,
Okay.
we didn't get a complaint on that.
Those are long-running issues, but they're not going to be resolved.
The
in
only
charter.
other thing that
But
I
we
will say.
But Deanna,
Yeah.
we will resolve them,
Okay.
or die trying.
Oh gosh, I only had one more thing.
You know, what we need is one of those Google trucks. And then take pictures of all the houses down the street, and then we can just send citations out to everybody.
Well, you know what? But it shouldn't be generated from complaints only. And the only other thing that I would suggest is that the person in charge of the council would be more like the chairman instead of the president. I don't know why that just sounds. And you need a vice, don't you? Just
No?
well, should
Then everybody's an officer. Oh.
Now, what
Well,
were you,
just so that the next person, if the chairman or president isn't going to be here, the next person that's going to be in charge of running the
is
meeting.
golf a good enough vice?
Huh?
Oh, you meant a vice, an officer, I see. I
Like
just thought you
vice
meant a vice.
chair, not. I don't know. I guess I prefer chairman versus president. Do they?
That's what they call, it's
All of
all
our-
over in government. Sometimes they're the president of the board or
All
president.
of our special things that we have up there, it's president. Don't you hear when he takes a roll?
I do.
I agree with
That's
you.
president.
It's an opinion. It's not. You know.
I agree
it's
with,
not a deal
I
breaker
agree
of
with
any kind.
Deanna, I like chairman, so,
But then that's sexist.
yes.
President is a-
Chairperson,
Is a
yeah. vice
neutral
chair.
term.
All right.
That's
So,
most of my importance.
we do have some issues to talk about in terms of those residencies. Richard, can you get us through those quickly?
Oh, no, just basically just in reference to the opinion letter, and Mike has, I guess there's a missed case cite in that letter, and Mike's actually found the right case. But, go ahead, Mike, because you're the more up-to-date
Yeah,
since you looked at the case.
I read it.
Oh, go,
There were two primary residency requirements put in, and it's both the council and the mayor, and they'll have to both be changed equally, so we can discuss it today and cover both of them. Stop. First off, the residency restrictions, that's the one I wanted to address. The restrictions relating to naturalized citizens, I think we should just drop it. There's just no point in making an issue of that.
Agree.
So I only want to address the residency restrictions. We had proposed various residency.
Commissioner, hello.
We had proposed in the charter, both for the mayor and for the councils, residency in the city and residency in their district. Now, in 1975, a couple years ago, our illustrious Supreme Court, in all of their infinite wisdom, struck down a one-year residency requirement in the Long Beach, in a Long Beach city charter. And in the case of Johnson versus Hamilton. And I read the case, and even though it's as old as time, there have been no challenges. Nothing has ever modified the case. There's never been any, there's nothing to challenge it. And they go into some degree as to, well, you know, living in a place so long doesn't make you any better or any worse. And they cover all the logical arguments one could make. And they hold it up to the highest scrutiny for constitutional, which is almost impossible to meet. So as such, I don't think we can put it in our charter the way it is. However, I think the residents really want it, so my suggestion is this. We modify the charter to meet the requirements of Johnson versus Hamilton, which talks about 30 days, I think, before the nominations open. But I think we should add text, and, you know, my suggestion is that it's the intent of this city to require residency requirements of whatever it is. And,
1 year.
due to the holding of, you know, Johnson versus Hamilton, we're not, such a rule would probably be unconstitutional. However, should Johnson or Hamilton either be overruled by another court or new legislation passed that would allow such term limits, and those term limits will take effect. And, you know, we could put that the city council could initiate that change simply, you know, with a 2/3 vote or something. But I think the residents want it. They don't want the Mike Rioses of the world to move or pretend to move, you know, 1 month before the election to run for office.
Well, Michael, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Why does the United States, you know, the only office that doesn't have residency requirements is the Congress? Most people don't know that, but you can run for Congress in any congressional district in the United States without residing in it. Whether or not you can be elected in it is a different story. But that's the only office, and I won $100 from you on that bet. So
I'm still waiting for my 100. Oh.
well, you don't want to get into that because so the bottom line is, why is it that they can have these residency requirements for a state office but not a city office?
Well, the illustrious court had some pretty bright minds. They even discussed that they don't believe this type of rule, even if the federal, and there are some federal cases that are different in other jurisdictions, but the U.S. Supreme Court has never made such a ruling that such residency requirements are allowed or not allowed.
Isn't there a supremacy clause?
Huh? Right, but this is not federal office. The state can have different, and the states have and do have different requirements to run for office than the feds. And they're allowed to do it, and they discussed that even in this case. And
what was the rationale for not allowing a city to determine its residency?
Actually, there were numerous. They say that the fundamental rights of travel, they find, let's see what they.
Well, they triggered the higher achievement standard.
Yeah, well, but they found 3 different tests, the right to travel, and they tied the right of election and the right of voting and the right of election very closely together. And in other cases, they said the right to hold public office is valuable and fundamental, impairment which can only be justified by a compelling government interest. And we emphasized as well the interlocking relationships between the right to vote and the right to hold office.
None of that addresses the residency requirement.
Candidacy, voting, and travel, we conclude they necessarily invite the application of strict scrutiny, and that's impossible to reach. They said, they talked about why they didn't think it was necessary. It's funny, because this was, what, 75, 89? This was 40 years ago. They talk about that the communications are much better now, and people can get to know the candidates with or without them living there. And they didn't think that living there.
That's true of a state office
Yeah,
holder.
well, the state office doesn't have such a requirement.
You're trying to make sense about what the court's.
So,
It is what it is. Why don't we
yeah,
put it
I
that
mean,
way?
so I don't.
I'm not an is what it is kind of guy.
Yeah, I don't.
I'm a
see,
I'm an is what it should be kind of
it's-
guy.
The decision is so clear. I don't think that. I don't think there's any way around it that wouldn't be clearly unconstitutional, and so therefore.
Well, we should follow your suggestion.
And so, but therefore, and that way, the voters will say, this is what we intend to do, the Supreme Court, and I'll draft some proposed language.
All right.
And it'll
send
apply to,
so that we avoid further numbers of drafts out here. Send that to me. I will incorporate it into a draft with many of these changes. I will get, so I'll get everybody on the same draft, and then Suzanne will be, kind of go through it, make sure we got it all.
yeah. Yeah, I think the residents want that, but we can only do what we can do. We're not gonna do.
All right.
I don't think we could, in good conscience.
Mr. Horn,
Pass it.
do you have any comments? Congratulations, I saw your name on the list, you applying for school board? Is that you? All right, yeah? Well, I think that's a good thing. Thank you so much for volunteering your service. I hope you're chosen. Thank you. So we're at 3:15. 15 minutes past. Any other comments, Richard?
Nope.
All right.
No.
Suzanne?
We're
Yeah.
meeting again next week.
We'll meet same place, same time? Same station?
No, we're not meeting next week. Did you change that?
I think we are taking a week off, aren't we?
Yeah.
We said to put it back on, so.
Well,
We were taking it off. Is there a problem in doing it next week? Do the mayor?
I don't have a problem doing it next week.
Let's stay on. Can we?
Next week, I'm actually going to come in with my grandson and say something and then kind of have to go. I will not be able to stay the whole meeting.
Okay.
Because he's
But
not going to be able to sit still.
He's-
He's 4.
You could bring his playpen. Does he do a playpen?
Oh, no.
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 How about that?
He does the computer better than I do.
Well, we'll see if the dog amuses him. If the dog amuses him, then you can leave when you leave.
I'll stay as long as
Yeah.
I feel comfortable.
Right. But listen,
She's
children.
quiet. He's
Children don't bother me. They don't bother anybody but Geller, and we don't care if they bother him. So, all right.
Okay.
So we're done. Thank you. You bet. Bye bye.